13th, 2010. Madam Clerk, please do the roll call. Everybody take the seats, please.
Ms. Osiander. Mr. Gutierrez.
Here.
Mr. Honeman.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Starr is excused. Mr. Flynn.
Present.
Mr. Trainee.
Here.
Ms. Johnston. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Mr. Birch.
Here.
Ms. Drummond. Ms. Drummond. We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Osiander, could you lead us in the pledge, ma'am?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Osiander. Next item in business is minutes of previous meetings. There are none. Mayor's reports next. Mr. Mayor, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we're really pleased today to be able to, with your indulgence, make a recognition that is well-deserved. And I wanted to call up to the podium Kiana Liska, a fifth grader at O'Malley Elementary School, and her friends and family that are here with her today. If you'll come up to that podium right there, I'll come join you in just a minute, but first I wanted to read something about you. As I mentioned, Mr. Chairman and members, Kiana is a fifth grader at O'Malley Elementary School, and her Girl Scout Junior Troop is working on their first aid badge, and they completed an American Heart Association CPR training for family and friends course in December of 2009. In April 2010, Kiana was with her grandparents at their home when her grandfather began to choke. Kiana was scared at first, but she remembered what she had learned and performed the Heimlich maneuver on her grandfather, saving his life. She was nominated for the Girl Scout Life-Saving Medal of Honor by Girl Scout volunteer and American Heart Association instructor Nancy Tone. Girl Scouting builds girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place, and Kiana lived up to this in every way. The Girl Scout Life-Saving Medal of Honor is for girls who have performed heroic acts to save a life beyond the degree of maturity and training expected for their age. So, Mr. Chairman and members, it's an honor for me to present Kiana with this medal.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, it was wisely decided that somebody other than me would pin this on Kiana. You've seen me in action before.
Mr. Mayor.
This is Marge Larson. I think you all know Marge.
Congratulations, Kiana. You have proved that Girl Scouts creates girls of courage, confidence, and character, and you have done us proud. Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
Good job.
Good job. Thank you.
Very
Thanks,
good.
everyone.
Thank you.
That's marvelous. Which grandfather was it? It's nice to have grandchildren, isn't it?
Well,
The microphone's yours.
you're all doing a good job up there.
Thank you. Thank you. That is nice. Next item in business, Assembly Chair's report. Nothing except we went to Eagle River on Saturday for the Bear Paw Festival, and we got to see Debbie parading down the road. And along, I think with Miss Johnston was there, you were going through. And what was interesting is Carrie Garrigan, who was there, kept complaining about political candidates that couldn't keep up with the traffic moving. So thank you for having us out there. It's a great part of Anchorage. It's great to see Eagle River have that festival every year. Thank you, Debbie, for inviting us. Appreciate it. Next item is committee reports, and Debbie, we'll start with you.
This week's Title 21 meeting is on Thursday at 9:30 at the Planning Department Conference Room. Our topic will be wind towers. So if you have ideas or concerns about how wind towers should be permitted in this town, please come. Basically, this would allow wind towers as long as you have in every zoning district. And if you've got an acre, wind towers up to about 95 feet in height with the appropriate setback. So a big change as we go through this. Thank you.
Debbie, just one thing, Jade Park. I had grandkids playing ball there, and there's never been a time I haven't been there where the wind blows sideways and so do the trees. So I suggest you put a wind generator there.
All right. And
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
do want to say a thank you to the chair, also to the mayor, and Ms. Johnson for coming to a great celebration. It was an exhausting weekend, but it was a lot of fun. We had a huge turnout. So thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you, Deb. Mike, committee report, sir?
No report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Paul, committee report?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The Public Safety Committee meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, at 3:30 p.m. at the Assembly Conference Room. I have a status report from AFD, Chief Hall, and representatives about wildfire response and their capability and their status for what's going on this season, as well as some apparatus update and the status on the potential of the new medic rig over Sand Lake, Jewel Lake area. As well, we have the police department and the school district coming. We're talking about discussion of potentially changing, amending ordinances in the area of skateboarding on all school district property, or the merits of whether or not it should be included, like Town Hall has one already. And additionally, we have a gentleman or some persons in Mr. Flynn's district who are concerned about Ordinance 8-80, the nuisance property ordinance, or the 8 calls per calendar year. So we'll be discussing all those and be looking to hear from the public as to their concerns on those matters or any other area concerning public safety. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Ernie?
No report.
Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How's our port?
Port's doing great. Just had 2 ships in today, in fact. We're working on our agenda for our next meeting, which is yet to be scheduled. We need to make sure when we meet again that we get an update on TOT's request for additional dredging beyond the existing plan to accommodate their move to the north extension. Once we have an idea of where that decision-making process is, we'll schedule a date, and we'll also review some of the budgetary materials we received at the end of the last meeting. And if anyone needs more detailed information, Mr. Hall, Ms. Ostiander, and myself, Mr. Honeman, Mr. Gutierrez, all have quite a bit of paper we're happy to share with you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And just for the body, don't forget we've got a meeting with the Matsu Borough coming up on Monday. So that's scheduled. And one of the items I think is on there is silt, which is going to be an interesting discussion.
I think they can keep the silt from my perspective,
Well,
sir.
there's some silt out there I'd like them to have back again. Jen?
Just that the Mayor's Energy Task Force will be meeting tomorrow on the 8th floor at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have an audit committee report, but I just want to mention I'm glad that Paul has the wildfire issue on his Public Safety Committee meeting agenda tomorrow, because next week I'll be attending at my expense the Wildland Fire Leadership Council, consisting of members from federal agencies from all over the country, and fire chief, a state forester, and a representative from National League of Cities. I'm not that representative, but I've been invited to go, and I'm going to go, and I look forward to bringing back some information to this community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chris? Harriet?
Thank you. No committee report, but I just wanted to say in follow-up to the work session we had on non-rep health plans the other day and opt-outs, some discussion followed on how to lower our costs with health care plans. And I've said this before, and I'd like to see it begin to happen. It would be wonderful if we could get all the public, municipal, and school district employees in this town on the same health care plan and bring costs down. Right now, there's at least a dozen different plans out there for 8,000 employees, while the state has over 20,000 employees on the same plan and significantly lower costs. I think this would be a good route to go, and I'd love to see the administration take us up on it.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the addendum to agenda. If I could get a motion to incorporate, please.
Second.
I'll go through it with you. Item 9A3, it's Resolution AR 2010-215, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly celebrating the 40th anniversary of Chugach State Park, from Assembly Member Johnston. Item 9C2, under bid awards, the same memorandum AM 414-2010, memorandum of award to GMC Contracting, Inc. for Independence Drive Upgrades Extension Colony Loop to O'Malley, Phase 1, to the Municipality of Anchorage, Project Management and Engineering Department. It is $1,672,943.61 coming from purchasing. Item 9D9, under new business, the same memorandum AM 410-2010, sole source contract award with QAP, Inc. for the Municipality of Anchorage, Project Management and Engineering. It's $265,325 from purchasing. Item 9D10, the same memorandum, AM 413-2010, utility relocation agreement with General Communications, Inc., GCI, for Raspberry Road upgrade, Arctic Boulevard to C Street, Project Management and Engineering, project number 07-50, $372,600, Project Management and Engineering. An ordinances and resolutions for introduction. As item 9F6, Ordinance AO 2010-53, an ordinance authorizing a long-term lease between the Municipality of Anchorage as lessor and Flight Safety Alaska, Inc. as lessee of Lot 7C, Block 2, Merrill-Field Replat Edition, number 6, located between runway 0725 and Glen Highway, Merrill-Field Airport. Public hearing requested is 7/27/10. There's an assembly memorandum along with it, AM 411-2010. On 9F7, Resolution AR 216, a resolution appropriating when tendered $99,512. Excuse me. Let's go back and do that again. $99,512,700 of legislative grants from State of Alaska, Senate Bill 230. I knew that wasn't big enough. Office of Management and Budget. Public hearing request on that is 7/27/2010. There's an accompanying assembly memorandum, AM 412-2010. There is a 9F8 that was handed out to you tonight. It's AR 2010-217. It comes from Assembly Member Starr. It is a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending AR 2009-277 as previously adopted to remove the requirement for presentation of valid identification for all premises sales of alcoholic beverages under Package Store ABC Board License Number 4558 by deleting a condition added by the Assembly in the conditional use approval for liquor stores USA North doing business as Brown Jug, located at 1106 North Muldoon Road, Building 8, Suite 110. Gateway Subdivision Tract A, Fragment Lot 16, generally located at the northwest corner of Muldoon Road and the Glen Highway. Taku, I can never pronounce that, Takatu Commons. Public hearing is going to be at our next meeting, the 27th of July, 2010. Is there anything else to be added to the addendum to the agenda? Seeing none, is there any objection to the acceptance of the addendum to the agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, that item is adopted. We've modified our agenda. If I get a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to those people that want to pull something for a little further discussion. Deb?
On the regular agenda, 9A1, 96,
9B6?
Delta,
Oh, 9 Delta 6.
and on 9A3, I just wanted to be added as a sponsor. I'm assuming that we all want to be a sponsor on that one, the Chugach Park.
Madam Clerk, if you just had everybody added to that, I'd appreciate it. I think.
Thank you. I don't need to pull it. That was my only interest in that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to pull 9 Echo 4. That's all.
Thank you. Paul?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll be doing a presentation for 9 Alpha 2. At your behest, I'll pull 9 Echo 2.
Yep.
And I'd like to pull 9 Foxtrot 1 for purposes of declaring a conflict of interest.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer?
Yes, I'd like to pull 9A3 on the addendum.
Thank you, ma'am. Elvie?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chris?
No items.
Harriet?
No items, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to comment on 9 Foxtrot 7. As we go into the public hearing and the process, I understand the chair would like to hold a work session on traffic calming. There are several $100,000 being proposed to be accepted from the state of Alaska regarding traffic calming and pedestrian safety issues. And I'd like to see a work session scheduled prior to that public hearing.
We'll set one up, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Administration? Thank you. Ask unanimous consent on those items that have not been pulled. Is there any objection? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please let the minutes reflect those items are approved unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. We'll now go back to those items that pulled for further discussion. Ms. Osiander pulled the first one, item 9A1, Resolution Air 2010-203, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and remembering Eagle River Music Ambassador Arthur W.
Brendel.
Help me, Debbie. Brendel, you know I'm terrible with names.
Move to approve.
Ask unanimous consent. See no objection, that's approved. Deb?
Thank you. I'm going to be reading. If the Brendels could come down, please. This is a resolution recognizing and remembering Eagle River's music ambassador, Arthur W. Brendel. Whereas on June 6, 2010, Arthur W. Brendel, founding member of the Anchorage Symphony Orchestra and the Alaska Fine Arts Academy, died at home at the age of 92, comforted by his wife of 63 years, Eleanor, and their loving family. Whereas Arthur W. Brendel, a gifted cellist, loved string music and shared that passion through his performances with the Anchorage Symphony Orchestra for 60 years, through his years with the Borealis String Quartet, and through his teaching of many students. Whereas born on May 25, 1918 in Palisades Park, New Jersey, Arthur W. Brendel was a mechanical engineer with a passion for music, art, and Alaska. Whereas following his naval service in the Pacific Theater during World War II, Arthur Brendel traveled to Juneau, Alaska, and in 1946 accepted a mechanical engineering position in Anchorage with the Civil Aeronautics Administration and the territorial predecessor agency to the FAA upon statehood. And whereas in October 46, Arthur W. Brendel married Eleanor, also a musician, and together they were among the founding members of the Anchorage Symphony Orchestra. And whereas in 1947, Arthur W. Brendel and his family homesteaded in Eagle River, one of the original homesteaders, I'm going to interject. Whereas Arthur, an avid organic gardener, experimented with plants, organic fertilizers, and soil supplements. Whereas friends and fellow musicians recalled in the first 20 years of Anchorage Symphony Orchestra, Arthur W. Brendel was the backbone of the orchestra with his hand in everything, from handling advertising to ensure that musicians had chairs. Whereas as an engineer, Arthur W. Brendel designed and built the first sewage lagoon in Alaska. He invented a lift to make symphony chairs more cellist-friendly. He installed a hydraulic water system on the Brendel family homestead, giving that Eagle River homestead indoor plumbing 2 years before it had electricity. And whereas in 1982, Arthur W. Brendel retired from the FAA after 35 years of service. And whereas in 84, sharing their passion for music and art, Arthur and Eleanor Brendel envisioned an Academy of Fine Arts to encourage and to empower people to explore their gifts within. And to that end, Arthur and Eleanor Brendel founded the nonprofit Eagle River Fine Arts Academy, now the Alaska Fine Arts Academy. And whereas presently in With the Meadow, discover the motto, discover the artist in you, the Alaska Fine Arts Academy continues its endeavors to develop artistic skills in every individual and to provide a place to perform and display artistic talent. And whereas over the year the Brandells have been honored with the Bear Paw Festival Lifetime Achievement Award, the Anchorage Mayor's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004, the Governor's Lifetime Achievement Award in the Arts in 2008. Whereas Arthur W. Brandell performed as a cellist with the Anchorage Symphony Orchestra for 60 years, retiring after the 2006 season. And whereas still active on the Alaska Fine Arts Academy Board of Directors at the time of his death, Arthur W. Brandell served as a good leader, an inspirational role model, a mentor of fellow musicians and directors. And whereas Arthur W. Brandell's leadership, talents as a cellist, pioneering spirit are evident throughout his life and are lasting investments for his musician-filled family, his friends, and the Anchorage community. Whereas the Alaska Fine Arts Academy, Arthur and Eleanor Brandell's enduring legacy offers an inviting, nurturing, instructional environment where artists may discover and refine their talents and share them with the community. Now, therefore, this assembly recognizing and honors Arthur W. Brandell for his passion in music, his organizational support and personal commitment to fine arts in this community, and his investment in Anchorage through musical enrichment for generations to come. Passed and approved this day.
Thank you. On behalf of my mother and the rest of my family, I thank you very much. Thank you, Debbie, for this great honor of the Assembly. It is an honor to be part of this community. And if you had gotten to know my father, you would have met a very humble man who would feel very uncomfortable right now receiving anything like this. But he did everything because he loved people, and he taught us all to respect every person, whether from a high-level education or just a commoner person, that you can learn something from everybody, and to respect all groups of people and to enjoy what they have to offer you. So thank you very much on behalf of our family.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you. Next item that was pulled off the consent agenda was item 9A2. Resolution AR 2010-204, resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and remembering Alaska pioneer and community activist Grady Ward. It was pulled by Mr. Flynn, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve.
Ask unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, that is approved. Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the Ward family would kindly come down, Ms. Gray Jackson will be presenting as I read, and I presume all members would like to be shown as co-sponsors?
Yes, if you would, please, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing and remembering Alaska pioneer and community activist Grady Ward. Whereas on June 11, 2010, Grady Ward, a founding member of the Fairview Community Council and the Fairview Community Patrol, died at the age of 85. And whereas Grady Ward was born on December 29, 1924, in rural East Texas, and whereas in 1949, Grady Ward headed north to Anchorage, Alaska, to make a future in the last frontier. And whereas, as one of Anchorage, Alaska's first African-American pioneers, Grady Ward found no one willing to rent him a room in a boarding house, so he lived in a tent on the Ship Creek Rail Yard for over 2.5 years while working as a welder for the Alaska Railroad. And whereas, as a laborer, welder, and carpenter, Grady Ward was a member of the Carpenters Local Union 1281 and worked for 52 years on numerous local construction projects, including the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, J.C. Penney, Nordstrom, Fifth Avenue Mall, Providence, and Alaska Regional Hospitals, Captain Cook Hotel, and projects on Elwendorf Air Force Base and Fort Richardson. And whereas, in 1976, Grady Ward helped found the Fairview Community Council, and whereas in the 70s and 80s, Grady Ward worked tirelessly with the Fairview residents, with the Anchorage Police Department, and with former Mayor George Sullivan to improve the quality of life in the Fairview community. And whereas Grady Ward, also a founding member of the Fairview Community Patrol, spent many nights patrolling the streets of Fairview, making it safer for families. And whereas Grady Ward was instrumental in obtaining traffic signals, school crossings, speed limit, and drug-free community signs throughout Fairview, which makes for a safer community today. And whereas a friend recently described Grady Ward as a Fairview Community Council community legend whose vigilance and dedication increased awareness of one's responsibility to oversee and actively engage in maintaining the safety of one's community. And whereas Grady Ward was a friend to many of Alaska's pioneers, including former Senator Ted Stevens, former Governor Bill Egan, and former Mayor George Sullivan. And whereas, over the years, Grady Ward worked closely with the Alaska State Legislature, including Senator Johnny Ellis, his neighbor and fellow Community Council member, and Senator Betty Davis. And whereas, true of many unsung heroes, Grady Ward did not seek the limelight, but was more concerned about making a difference in his neighborhood, community, and state. And whereas the municipality of Anchorage and Fairview community are indebted to Grady Ward for his community service, now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly recognizes and honors Grady Ward for his passion and commitment to the Fairview community, pioneer spirit, and fortitude in meeting the challenges of the last frontier. Passed and approved this day.
Good evening, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, and to you members of the Assembly. My name is Ray Ward, and I'm the firstborn of Mr. Grady Ward. My father, coming from a poor family in rural East Texas, had to drop out of school at the 6th grade when his father became ill to pay the family debt. My father never had an opportunity to go back to school. The only formal education my father had was a 6th grade education, but he never gave up. But the man had a university degree of life, a degree more equivalent than a PhD from the University of Life. My father had four special loves in his life. Number one, his family. He worked diligently all of his life to care for his family. His second love was for the territory that gave birth, which he nurtured that young territory that led to the birth of the state of Alaska. And my father, Mr. Grady Ward, nourished that young state from its infancy to its adulthood through building that state in construction for 52 years in the state of Alaska. My father's third special love was his second wife. She was a little Mexican lady, mestiza, and I must tell you folks, my stepmother is the only person that I have met in the world that could tame the giant of a man. And my father's fourth special love was the United States of America. His country, his community, the territory of Alaska, and the state of Alaska. I, too, am trying to carry on my father's legacy. Some of you know that I'm very active in my community in Airport Heights to try to make my community a safe and livable and decent neighborhood for honest and hard-working families and children. My father loved everyone that was good. So I ask each of you to help me in the future, and you each can do this individually, by standing up for what is right, protecting your community, protecting the honest, hard-working people in that community, protecting our young leaders, our children. You see the drug dealers, the prostitutes, the criminals. Let them know, no, you don't belong here. This is an honest, hard-working family community. I want to thank, on behalf of my father, Mr. Grady Ward, and my family, the Grady Ward family, it is indeed truly an honor for you all to recognize and to appreciate my father first as the individual that he was, and for the contributions that he made to the territory, state of Alaska, his community Fairview, and the city of Anchorage. I ask all of you to join me in an effort to carry this recognition farther by helping me get a park that's located in Fairview, the heart of park in Fairview, renamed in honor of Grady Ward. I've already talked to some of the Parks and Recreation people, and there's a process. So I ask each of you if you can support me and join me in this effort, because Fairview was his community. On behalf of my family again, thank you very much. God bless each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a few questions for you.
Yes.
Paul Holman has a question. Paul?
More of a comment than a question. Mr. Ward, I had the extreme pleasure of actually working with your father when he was part of the community patrol. I remember people actually shooting at his vehicle on a particular night, and he made a big impact in his community. He was not afraid to confront those that were intent on doing bad deeds in his community, and his information and his wit and certainly his tenacity to make sure his commitment to keep that community safe was untiring, and certainly a devotion that is unequaled in a lot of folks that live in the municipality of Anchorage. I wish that more people could have the same heart, or even a fraction of that, to make our community better. So I fully appreciate his time and recognize that you certainly want to carry on your service as well and try to do your portion. So thank you very much, and it was a pleasure and honor knowing your father.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ward, we're happy to work with you on that park renaming project. The mayor, I think, already took note of that, and we'll work together to get that naming committee together. And also, I think you dropped your pen.
That is very honorable and it's touching and very appreciative to take forth that step. That way, whenever you drive throughout Fairview, or you walking to the store, or you just riding your bike, or you go to that park to have a picnic with your family, just listen. Listen to the wind. Listen to the trees. And look at that vehicle that's turning that corner. Who knows? It might be my dad's old green pickup truck on patrol.
Mayor Sullivan, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, wanted to echo the sentiments of appreciation for your father's tireless work in Fairview. My dad had the greatest respect for Grady, and I thank you for continuing his good work, and I look forward to working with the Assembly and yourself on naming a park. I'm 100% supportive of that. So, thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Your Honor. Thank you. I knew your father also. He was a great man. Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let Ray know that I did get your note, and I took the liberty of printing out of the code the process, just in case you don't have it, for doing what you asked us to do, and I'm happy to participate in that effort, and I thank the mayor for publicly willing to join us in making that happen. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and also thank you, Assemblywoman Evergrey Jackson, for you introducing this resolution to recognize my father. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no other questions, comments. Thank you. The next item is on the addendum to the agenda is item 9A3, Resolution AR 2010-215, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly celebrating the 40th anniversary of Chugach State Park. Get a motion to approve that?
Yes, I'd like to move the S version.
Okay.
Second.
You get a motion on that? You did that as your second. We've had that. Ask unanimous consent. See no objection. That's approved. Jennifer?
And I think everybody wanted to be listed on this also.
Everybody did, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is that going to anybody here tonight at all? Okay, thank you.
I don't think there's anybody present, Mr. Chair, but we would like to present at the park celebration the printed resolution, the resolution folders to the recipients. There are many of them. Some are living, some are not. Some are in Alaska, and some are not. But the celebration's in early August, and it would be great to celebrate with them.
Good, thank you, ma'am. Dropping down on the agenda, we should be now down to, on page 2, item 9D6, the same memorandum, AM 407-2010, contract amendment number 2.
Move to approve.
Debbie, you pulled it, ma'am.
I did. I want to particularly thank Mr. Hansen for his help in learning more about this today. I pulled it, I am going to vote for it, but I pulled it for two reasons. One, I wanted people to note the engineering cost for this project. We have no construction money, but all told, we're going to be spending, just for designing this, almost $1 million. And the construction cost is another 2.8 is the guess right now. We don't have that money yet, but it's coming. The reason I want to bring this to your attention is twofold. One, we have so many drainage problems in this municipality, and the cost for each of them, I think, is going to be very, very challenging for us to deal with. I know I'm aware of significant one or two now in the Muldoon area, and we've got 3 in Eagle River that are of big concern. The complicating factor that makes this even more challenging is now there's higher standards for dealing with wastewater. We've been talking about that a lot in Title 21, but we're, as part of our new permit requirements, we're having to show market improvements in all of our drainage, in the drainage plan that we submit to the feds. So I'm going to be watching this one real closely, and I think it's just the first of many to come. So, thank you, Jerry, again.
Thank you, Deb. Any other comments from assembly members? Asking unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, that item is approved, Madam Clerk. Dropping on down, we're now on page 3, item 9E2, Information Memorandum AIM 70-2010, Executive Appointments. Mr. Flynn, you pulled that at my request, sir.
I'll move to accept.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
To administration, my only concern on this is, would you please give us a list that lists the individual, the salaries, and all the compensation to include the non-cashable leave they're getting? Because as we put our budget together for this next year, I want to know every employee what their salary is and in non-cashable so we can figure out what the total compensation package is. If you would, please, Mr. Mayor, we'd appreciate it.
Sure.
No objection to this item other than that.
Thank you.
Any comments from assembly members? Asking unanimous consent, seeing no objection. That item is approved. Accepted. Dropping on down, we have 9E4, Information Memorandum AIM 72-2010, May 2010 Financial Reports. That was pulled by Mr. Gutierrez. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to accept.
Mike?
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. To the administration, I was looking at the budget to actuals for the non-labor portion, and OMB stood out. And then as I was reading, I saw on the front page the explanation of that due to an annual payment for the budget prep system, and that's why they're so over budget as far as the non-labor portion. But I guess my question is, if it's an annual payment, why wasn't it budgeted?
Mr. Gutierrez, through the chair, it was budgeted, but we make the payment early in the fiscal year, and as a result, that $30,000 payment is substantial, and it is part of our year-to-date expenditures. It's not like we get to pay,
I see. So it's a large percentage of the budget, so you've expended a larger percentage than the amount of year that we've already gone through,
Correct.
But you'll catch up or rather pull back as the year. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from assembly members? Asking unanimous consent, seeing no objection. Madam Clerk, that item is approved by the body. Thank you. We are now down on page 3, item 9F1. Under ordinances and resolutions for introduction, pulled by Mr. Flynn, it's ordinance AO 2010-52, an ordinance to determine the fee for non-exclusive utility easement for fiber optic cable and related facilities granted to ACS Cable Systems across HOB parcels 4-033A, 4-033B, and 4-034. Supplementing AO 2008-38. Public hearing on this one will be 7/27/2010. Information memorandum comes with it, AIM 75/2010. Mr. Flynn, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that somebody else move to introduce this, please.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Third.
We've got 3. Okay, Mr. Flynn, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to declare a potential conflict of interest. My wife has represented ACS in a variety of legal matters over the past decade, and I believe that's a direct violation of our ethics rules.
Thank you for acknowledging that, sir.
If I were to participate, that is.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Just a question or comment after you're done with Mr. Flynn's
Okay.
conflict.
You're directed by the chair not to participate in this item because you definitely have a conflict of interest, and I'll put this at the end of the agenda for the meeting on the 27th so we can go through everything else, deal with this, and then you can leave at the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Well, in that case, I'm going to declare a conflict on this item as well. I know this topic has been the subject of some consternation over the last year or so, and I'm wondering if it is your intention to schedule a work session on this issue.
Yes, I'm going to.
All right. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please get us a work session on that? And while you're at it, get us a work session on item 9F7 that was requested by, we may have a problem. On 9F7, we need a work session on that. That deals with the Senate Bill 230. Ms. Tucker? Are we going to have a problem because we're acting as a quasi-judicial on that one? Okay.
And so this is not a work session item. This is an unusual situation for the Assembly. And so the Assembly will be sitting more as an adjudicatory body, and that's why the ex parte contact rules are in effect.
So work session's not something
And a
we
work
should
session
do.
is not advised.
Okay. Mike, there's your answer.
So then how are we to educate ourselves on
In
this
the
issue?
past, it's on the evidence presented in front of us that night.
Wow. All right, thank you.
You're not to talk to anybody involved with this, either side. You're acting as a judge, essentially. And we can't take any ex parte communication on this. If you're at a community council and this, for some reason, is discussed, walk out of the community council because you can't hear it.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Julia, anything else?
I think you've covered it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. That completes our work on that portion of the agenda. We're now down to item 4, on page 4, item 11A, Ordinance AO 2010-44S, S1, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 1.15.020, prohibited conduct. Some history on this one. We held public hearing on it, closed public hearing, and you'll find that there is an S1 version in front of you tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I've been looking for it for about an hour or 45 minutes. Okay, thank you.
We should have it somewhere around here.
Mr. Chairman, if I can help a little bit here, we have a motion on the floor regarding the S version.
Yes, we do.
So I think we need to dispense with that prior to proceeding with the S1 version.
Well, the clerk said we could simply move to substitute,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
I'd ask the clerk before we began this discussion.
He wasn't here. It wouldn't be here.
Ellie, do you have the S1 version?
I do now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Your motion, Elby?
Thank you,
It'll be a
Mr.
motion
Chairman.
to substitute the 44S1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to substitute 2010-44S1.
Second.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, we now have S1 in front of us. Elby, to discuss this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would yield to our attorney who drafted this amendment along with the municipal attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Julia?
I believe that the Assembly members and I'm assuming the mayor and the city manager, George Vacalis, received an email from Dennis Wheeler, who had worked with me following the work session on this language. And in consultation with him, I went ahead and prepared the S1 version after discussing his proposed changes with the sponsors.
Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, what the this S1 version does is, besides the fact that it states that occasional use of municipal resources and employee participation in community service events are not under the jurisdiction of the Ethics Code, for one thing, and it also goes on to further state that this is not the case if these events are duly authorized by the Assembly or in writing by the mayor or the mayor's designee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Osiander?
Well, I'd gotten to the point where I was fine with what we talked about at the work session, but it changed again. And I guess I have some concerns about the new version. My primary concern, I think, first off, I think that adding the occasional use of municipal resources is fine. What worries me is the new language that says duly authorized by the Assembly or in writing by the mayor or mayor's designee. My fear is that this puts us in a position where the Assembly is going to have to write policy and procedures or delegate somehow the policy and procedures to be written by the administration. I'm not sure how that's going to work. And secondarily, I think it puts us in a position where if a particular event or organization wants municipal resources, they'll just come to the Assembly and we won't have a good criteria for approval or disapproval. So maybe if the people who want it this way could explain it to me a little bit, because right now I like the original version a whole lot better than the S1.
Okay. Julia may be able to answer this. Julia?
Thank you. Through the chair, the wording here is to make sure that the issues and procedures concerning any of the charitable events are not ruled by the ethics code. That's a misplacement and a misinterpretation. So this language, in the view of Dennis Wheeler and myself, actually doesn't do what Ms. Osiander has indicated. The reference to duly authorized by the Assembly is to ensure that the status quo of the Assembly under the whole rest of municipal code and charter stays in place. And so that's how we would interpret duly authorized by the Assembly. And then the written procedures were what I understood from Dennis Wheeler and the municipal manager at the work session was a way for the administration to make sure that the separation of powers and the administration's ability to devise policies and procedures also stayed intact. And as long as those two things were done, which in the case of, for instance, the United Way has been done, then the ethics code and board would not be, their jurisdiction would not be implicated.
Is that all, Julia?
Well, I could keep talking, but yes, I'm done.
Okay, I just wanted to know if you were done. I thought maybe you were taking a pause or something.
That didn't help.
Deb?
That didn't help. My issue, I got through the outside the jurisdiction of the ethics board. We talked about that at the work session. I understand that. What I don't understand is now the addition of authorized by the Assembly or in writing by the mayor. Does that mean that individual charitable organizations will come to us and ask us as the Assembly, if the administration doesn't approve, that we will then have to approve?
Julia?
No.
Well, that's how I read it. So
the phrases that you are referring to are modifications of when the Ethics Board has jurisdiction. They are not there to empower or diminish the power of the Assembly, the respective powers of the Assembly and the administration. So, under this wording, the first part is that the occasional use of municipal resources, employee participation, community service events, and employee charitable fundraising are not prohibited by this subsection. And they're outside the jurisdiction of the Ethics Board if they're properly authorized. That's what that language means. So it doesn't mean that that the Ethics Code creates a separate avenue.
Okay, I just want to ask if everybody understood it that way, because I did not read it that way at all. Does the administration not agree that that's your interpretation?
With your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I have the same concern with the language, and I appreciate the fact that you and Mr. Wheeler worked on it. You said if other language, other than if duly authorized, if properly authorized, what constitutes authorization by the Assembly?
Mr. Mayor, can I give you one suggestion? It might be, for example, we adopted Denali Road, the Assembly did, if you remember when you were on the Assembly, and we would show up there to clean the road with our clerks and our ombudsman, and those are municipal resources. If that's what we're doing, it needs to be authorized by the Assembly. It's our department that does that.
That's one of three other ways that the Assembly is allowed to authorize things in writing. The other two are by resolution and ordinance. So what would happen is if the Assembly did a funding ordinance, as they have done before, for a charitable event or something else that would come under the whole subsection 7 here, that if they did that, it wouldn't give the Ethics Board jurisdiction. The administration could veto it, but it wouldn't be under the Ethics Board jurisdiction to enter into political discussions on whether that was an appropriate.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was Ms. Osiander's question was, is it the Assembly's then authorization to either pass a resolution or an ordinance authorizing a particular group of employees to work on behalf of a particular entity? Was that not what your question was, Ms. Osiander? I have the same question.
Okay.
Not under the Ethics Code.
Julia?
The answer to that concern, I'm going to answer that concern by referencing something else. What Mr. Wheeler and I did not, both felt that we did not need to do is to incorporate by reference the whole rest of the municipal code and charter to explain what duly authorized was. And I don't think we do now. The Ethics Board has to follow code. And so this is not an empowerment, it's a reference to the rest of the code. And so in my legal opinion, and I believe in the legal opinion of Mr. Wheeler, the duly authorized does not allow the Assembly to do anything that they wouldn't be authorized to do under the whole rest of the code. It's not an enlargement of any power. It's only saying it's taking a small piece and saying the Ethics Board doesn't have jurisdiction. Only the Ethics Board doesn't have jurisdiction over that. The Ethics Board wouldn't be the place to handle a separation of powers argument anyway. That would be sort of handled here. That's my view of it.
So the bottom line is that it says that the Assembly by resolution or ordinance can approve something which would be considered outside the jurisdiction of the Ethics Code, the specific occasional use of municipal resources.
I think that's a twisting of the words that's not there, Mr. Mayor.
Julia, thank you for your response. Mr. Mayor, any other questions?
No, it's just that
Comments on this item?
I guess what I'm troubled with is that it's not as clear as it could be.
Okay.
I mean, if Ms. Osiander and I both have the same concern, is this really a plain reading of an ordinance in as understandable a language as it could be? And I don't think we're quite there yet. But
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Honeman?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I understand where Ms. Tucker's coming from, and I know as one of the initial sponsors there with Ms. Gray Jackson. The intent here is to make sure that our employees, the municipal employees, are not put in a position where they're in violation of any charter, any ordinance, any language whatsoever, that if the decision, the tough decision of whether this municipal assembly or this municipal administration authorizes or disapproves of any entity or any location, charitable organization to support or use resources to, that it's not the employee that faces the music, it's the decision makers, the elected officials, and myself included. I, for one, am very proud to be able to step forward and make those tough decisions and take the heat for it if that's what's necessary. I think this is political football that's being paggled around, and we're dragging it out, and I don't really see the real reasoning for it. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to make one comment relevant to what Ms. Tucker said. And the bottom line is, folks, that regardless to what is in this new section of the code, the Assembly already is duly authorized to appropriate funds, to revise the code, and to do anything else that the Charter requires us to do. So this is nothing new. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Flynn, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the discussion, and really it sort of illustrates that, unfortunately, the reason this is before us is because what I feel was an erroneous interpretation of municipal code by the municipal attorney's office, and that created this little go rope that we're in the middle of. And frankly, I'm not going to vote for this, not because I oppose it, and not because I oppose the firefighters participating in the Fill the Boot campaign, but because the mess was created unnecessarily, and I don't believe in sanctioning poor behavior. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Osiander, ma'am.
I want to respond to Ms. Gray Jackson's comment. I believe that the Assembly has the power to allocate budgetary resources to various organizations. I don't think now that the Assembly has the power to, say, decide to give all of our library books to Campfire, or to give all of the resources at the health department to a doctor's clinic that we like. I don't think we have that power. And my fear on this is I don't want us to get in a position where we have discussions about this particular nonprofit is better than that particular nonprofit, to get in positions. Actually, we've already been in the position where we looked at grants, and instead of using the filter that the health department used when they gave out grants, and I've been guilty of this, I've been lobbied on by one particular agency, and I heard them and I thought, well, why didn't we fund them? And then I found out later that they didn't score high enough on the grant, but in budget I went ahead and pushed for them because they had a good argument. I like to have things treated fairly and equally. And my sense is that this is going to put the Assembly in a position where we're going to get lobbied for one nonprofit over another nonprofit, and basically it's giving us carte blanche because no matter what we decide to give or do for that nonprofit, it'll be exempt from any examination by the Ethics Board. And that wasn't what I thought we'd done with the original version. I thought we had created general rules that would allow municipal resources to be spent for non-municipal purposes as long as there were general policies and procedures followed. And I was really comfortable with that. I don't know how I'm going to vote right now. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gutierrez, one last comment. It's your second time into this trough.
For this? It is?
For this item.
Did we start that long ago? I forgot what my first comment was.
Sir, your time is continuing.
Thank
please.
you, sir. This actually highlights a conversation that Ms. Osiander and I had before the meeting, and why I am reluctant to try to predict how long these meetings are going to go, because things that I think ought to be simple are the things we end up getting wound around the axle on, and the things that I think we should get wrapped around the axle on go by very quickly. So I'm kind of perplexed at the confusion. I think Ms. Tucker explained it pretty clearly, that this doesn't empower anyone or anything. This just simply says if something is approved by the mayor, his designee, or the assembly, which are authorities that are already in place, then the ethics board doesn't have jurisdiction over those. It seems fairly simple, and I don't quite understand the confusion, Mr. Chairman, but thank you.
Thank you. There's no one else in the queue. Please vote. That item is approved 6-4. Moving on down to the next one. We are down on item
I think you're safe on the rest.
14A. Let me get the computer up there. There. Public hearings are now open on this item. If you wish to testify for the following items, please come forward. State your name clearly for the clerk, and please spell your last name so we can get it all recorded correctly. The first item in front of us is item 14A. Is ordinance AO 2010-51, an ordinance amending municipal code section 3.30.161 to allow development of a health insurance coverage opt-out program for executive and non-representative employees. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. Anyone at all? Hearing say no, the public hearing on this item is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question to the administration. You mentioned it during the work session, and I apologize, I don't recall about, was going to be a sort of a trial program. What is the sort of evaluation period? When will you step back, look at it, and say, we expected it to do A, and it did or did not?
Ms. Irwin?
Members of the Assembly, we have slotted a review period from 1 to 3 years. This is a new program. We don't know how long it's going to take, and because it does deal with health care issues and runoff with claims, things of that sort, it may take longer than a year, so we're looking between a 1 to 3 year period.
Thank you. That seems appropriate. Mr. Chairman, with that in mind, the only other comment I have is that I would urge approval of this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gray Jackson, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a quick comment. I think this is really an excellent program. I'm very, very happy to see it happening. As a matter of fact, some years ago when I had a spouse who worked for the municipality, and I did at the same time, I wanted it to happen then. I even talked about it. Too late for me, but I'm glad to see it. And I had one question during the work session, and the question was if when this occurs, would our administrative costs be more? And I think Ms. Irwin sent the response to everyone. And if not, could you just publicly respond to my question? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Certainly, and I did address that directly to you. So the question was whether our third-party administrator costs would increase if we had folks drop out of the program or take the opt-out, and the answer is very unlikely. We pay a per-head administrative fee to our third-party administrator for our health plan. And we do not have a floor or a minimum number of employees that we have to have on the plan. And given that this particular plan is targeted to approximately 700 municipal employees, non-reps, and executives, and those that are eligible, from what we can determine, is about 180 people with dual coverage. Those that decide to take it, it would probably be a de minimis number, and there would be very little, if any, impact.
Thank you.
Have we looked at extending this to the school district to see if they have any employees that fit this category they would like to opt into this program?
That's beyond the scope of what I've planned on for this particular program.
Well, you might want to talk to them. I don't know, if there's a problem doing it, but if it works for us, you might see what they've got. Mr. Mayor, sir?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to publicly thank Ms. Irwin and Ms. Ucera for their work on this. every department, as you know, because of budget challenges, is looking at ways to save money and find efficiencies, and this was a great suggestion, and appreciate the Assembly putting it into action.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Doesn't appear to be any other discussion. Please vote. Item was approved unanimously, 10-0. Thank you for bringing it forward to us. Appreciate it. Next item in front of us is item 14B, Resolution Error 2010-185, a resolution appropriating $298,704 of revenue from State of Alaska Department of Transportation. Thank you. This is National Pollution Discharge Elimination System Permit Services. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Hearing say no, and the public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Oh. Debbie? Actually, somebody needs, there it is. Okay. Deb?
I just wanted to, again, emphasize that this is because of, these costs are increasing because there's higher standards in the NPDES, and it's going to hurt later on. That's all. Merge approval.
You know, you're absolutely right, Deb, because 10 years ago we were discussing this relative to Cook Inlet, and they're requiring us to make the water that we put into there cleaner than drinking water in some cases. And if you take a look at Cook Inlet, it's not clear with all the silt, but they're requiring us to make the water just so clear. It's going to be a real problem for us, Deb. You're absolutely right. Any other discussion from Assembly members? Please vote. I was approved unanimously. Takes a minute to catch up. We now got item 14C, Resolution AR 2010-186, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $173,396 for insurance recovery revenue. Public hearing on this item is now opened. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Hearing and say no, the public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion from Assembly members. Please vote. Can I re-vote him? Mr. Gutierrez, since we missed you, how did you want to vote on that item?
Forgive me, Mr. Chairman. I would like to be reflected as a yes.
Okay. That's an affirmative action on that. Thank you, ma'am. We've got to queue it and go up to D. Thank you. Next item in front of us is item 14D, Resolution Error 2010-187. A resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $131,994 from State of Alaska Department of Transportation. This is pass-through money and transfer responsibility tour agreement, MOA traffic counts 0911 program in the municipality. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion from Assembly members.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gutierrez, sir.
The question to the administration is in your opinion, is TORA adequately funded from the state? Are they giving us enough money to do the job that we're going to do?
This particular TORA, yes.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Please vote. Item is approved, 10-0. That item is passed. Next item in front of us is item 14E, Item 14E is Resolution Air 2010-189, a resolution appropriating $241,826 from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation. And this is another tour agreement. This is the 2011 Long Range Transportation LRTP plan. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wish to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Hearing and saying no, and public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion from Assembly members. Mr. Gutierrez.
Same question. Yes? Thank you.
Same answer.
Debbie?
I just want to draw everybody's attention, for the very first time, we will be jointly dealing with the Anchorage Bowl LRTP and the Chugiak Eagle River LRTP. It's going to be shocking. So, thank you.
You can be safe to drive home, Ms. Oskander?
No, basically, it's going to stop all the money going into the Anchorage and none being left over for the Eagle River.
Eagle River is part of Anchorage, man. We settled that a long time ago.
I like that there.
Okay.
Does this include Seward Highway?
Yeah, it's in the Anchorage Bowl one.
Debbie and I have an old history on this, don't we, Deb?
Mr. Trainee, we do.
Please vote. That item is approved unanimously. Next item in front of us is item 14F, Resolution Air 2010-197, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating a supplemental grant award of $290,192 from State of Alaska Department.
Reading.
Okay, this is a air quality public and business awareness education program. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Hearing and say no, and the public testimony is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Need a second? Thank you. Discussion from Assembly members. Please vote. Item was approved unanimously. Next item in front of us is item 14G, Resolution Air 2010-201, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving an alcoholic beverages conditional use permit for a beverage dispensary tourism use in a restaurant and license number 4987 in a restaurant in the T Transition District for Host International, doing business as Humpy's Great Alaska Ale House, located at 5000 West International Airport Road. Public hearing on this item is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. State your name clearly for the record. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. We just need to give your name and spell your last name.
John Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N.
Thank you, sir.
I'm the general manager for HMS Host. And just here to answer any questions that the Assembly may have.
Questions from Assembly members? There doesn't be any, sir. Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Mr. Honeman.
Sir, just was curious, where inside, is this inside security or outside security?
It's inside security. It's in the B concourse right next to B3.
So it'll be a new business in the new, really designed, I guess, B concourse?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Flynn, sir.
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Wilson. Do I correctly interpret that you're basically licensing the Humpy's brand for this restaurant?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Do I correctly understand you're basically licensing the Humpy's brand for this restaurant?
HMS Host, yes, franchises from
Humpy's. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
There were no other questions, Mr. Wilson. Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward. Hearing and saying no, the public hearing this item is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from Assembly members? Not seeing any. Please vote. That item was approved by the body. Next item in front of us is item 14H, Resolution Air 2010-202, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving an alcoholic beverage conditional use for a beverage dispensary tourism use on license number 4988. This is Norton Sound Seafood House, located at the same place as the last one. Public hearing is now open. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward. Mr. Wilson, it's been so long.
Just this unit is under construction at this time.
Okay. Questions from Assembly members? Mr. Wilson? There don't appear to be any. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Birch. I didn't see you. Sorry about that.
I was just looking at your plan and being familiar with the airport. Does it look like you're going to be serving inside and outside security there?
Yes, there will be. It's called a Sally Port. You will be able to get food on the greeter side.
On the non-secure side. Oh, that's going to be a great addition. I was traveling through the airport the other day and noticed it's all fenced
Yes.
off. When do you anticipate being open?
September 29th is our tentative date.
Great. Well, good luck with that. That'll be a
Thanks.
nice addition. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Birch. Any discussion from Assembly members?
Have a motion?
Not seeing any. Please vote. Sorry. What? Yeah, she's right. We need a motion and a second.
Move to
I've got it
approve.
on I've got it on here. Oh, that's introduced. We need one to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's my fault. Mr. Honeman, she says you need to push your button.
Which
You
one?
can. You have to-
I'm trying them in.
I'll have to cancel it. I've got it locked out.
On the floor.
Barbara, please.
Second.
I'm
Trying. There you are. Now we can vote.
Let's see. If I can, I think I messed the computer up.
There we go.
Okay. We'll get there yet.
Are we re-voting?
Yes. There was a technical punching error on my phone. Sorry about that. That was approved unanimously. That completes the agenda. We're now to item 15, which is special orders. Are there any? Not seeing any. Item 16, there is no unfinished agenda. My thanks to all the Assembly members for getting our work done. Appreciate that. Item 17, audience participation. Is there anybody who wants to address the Assembly on any issue? Not seeing anybody. We move down to Assembly comments. Ms. Osiander, ma'am.
No comment.
Mr. Gutierrez, sir.
I don't think I can drag this out for another hour, so I'll say no
You
comment.
can. Mr. Honeman, sir.
Same here. No comment.
Mr. Holster.
No comment.
Mr. Flynn.
Happy Tuesday, sir. Thank you.
I would just like to thank everybody that put up with Tudor and Lake Otis. And our little construction. If you've tried to go through there, you realize it's better now than it was before. So hopefully it will help move traffic through there and we won't have a big blockade. They say they'll be just finishing it up between now and October. But the major work is done on that, so I appreciate everybody's indulgence with the intersection change there. Jennifer? Elvie?
Chris and I had the best guess. Sorry, folks.
I just wanted to wish Miss Johnston a happy birthday, and also note that this is grandson Oliver's third week anniversary of his birth. So,
That's great. Harriet?
Thank you. I just wanted to observe that earlier this evening we had the presence of Mr. Whitekeys, whose real name is Doug Hagar, for a liquor license transfer to Taproot, which recently opened in the old Players House of Rock, and previous to that, the Fly-By Nightclub on Spenard Road. I had dinner there last night, as did Mr. Hall, and a bunch of people from the Spenard Road meeting, and it was absolutely fabulous. Live jazz, little girls playing on the dance floor in the light of the ballroom reflector. It was
great.
just a stitch, and it's such a pleasure to welcome a new business. They moved out of South Anchorage. Too bad for South Anchorage. Sorry, you have to drive more, and bring a little new energy to that part of Spenard. It's just delightful, and I wanted to welcome them, but I missed my chance because we approved their license transfer without comment, and they disappeared. So do come
Mr.
out
White
to Spenard.
Keys came in here once a few years ago with his little piano and did his thing back there in the corner, and we really appreciated him being here.
Well,
I think he roasted all of us that night.
He's very happy that the liquor license is now in responsible hands.
Good. The last item is adjournment. If we could get a motion. Is there a second? We're adjourned. So who gets closer?
Full hour ahead of when I think.
Oh, jeez. Sorry about that.